usually when we are, usually it is said you can call it a droplet or energy on the crown of our head. I believe that our Father's energy, is on our head, on the Mother's energy or Mother's droplet essence remains in our navel. And then at that time, now the four elements are no longer working. So then these two starts to come into the heart. In the heart, there is said to be a kind of dark droplet energy, and these, the merges together. Then the male father merges together and dissolves. At this time, the outer breath ceases. If you kind of, like how they check whether someone is breathing or not, you will find that that person has stopped breathing. But from the spiritual point of view, from the Pardo point of view, we do not define that person as being dead. Because even though outer breath is ceased, the inner breath is still there. There is still the breath is still there. The air is still there. And the consciousness not yet gone out of the body. So in the Himalayan region, no one will really cremate the body immediately. If possible, they keep for 1 week. If not for a few days, at least a few days. Usually nobody cremates immediately, because that will be like cremating somebody alive. So there's not. And then also there's a possibility of that person going into meditation, because they have, anyway, we'll explain that process. So if it's like, I feel the best example is like a computer. Nowadays I don't know, but computers become so advanced. But in the olden days, few years back, the PCs, when you shut it down, the screen goes blank. But if you listen nicely, they're still shutting down, Twang, like kind of there's a noise and it's kind of slowly shutting down. Similarly, externally the breathing might have ceased, but internally the consciousness are still, the shutting down. So when the consciousness shuts down also, it shuts down from the gross to subtle and to subtle. For example, I remember yesterday we was sharing the story that the morning tea is called the Nirmanakaya, very strong, right? And then, in lunchtime is just hot water. Still the tea is there, it is the Sambhogakaya tea, right? In the night is basically hot water, it's the Dharmakaya tea, right? So similarly also the emotion also, it says here that the most, of course there are various emotion, but all of our emotion, the causes are the three: desire, anger, desire, and ignorance. Right? So of course within anger there are many, the anger, kind of gives birth to many other emotions, etc. And the desire and the ignorance. But anger is a very gross emotion. When somebody is angry, their face will turn red. They will want to physically hit you. They can't even speak out of anger. It's very strong and a very gross emotion. But when somebody has a desire, you don't know. You have a nice diamond, and then you show, and people will say, "Oh, how nice!" They are complimenting you, but maybe inside they're desiring your diamond. But you don't know. It's very subtle, right? And the ignorance is very, very subtle. The very concept that you believe that diamond inherently exists is an ignorance. And that's very subtle. It's so subtle that if we realize it, we will definitely be on the path of enlightenment. So then that is why it is said that give in one of the other ways the great masters give example is, when you have I think I said it yesterday also, when you perceive something, at first there's a perception that is very hazy. Then it becomes more kind of, the strong. Look like a kind of like a white. Then it becomes a flower, the concept of the flower. Then, again, that concept dissolves. And there's a momentary kind of, the free of all concept. And then, of course, then another concept, starts. Tree, this, that, etc. Right? So basically, in a very simple speaking, basically, the gross consciousness dissolve into subtle dissolve into the very subtle, and there's a short moment where we are free of all concept, and you can call it Dhammakaya, you can call it the great luminosity, you can call it nature of the mind, naturally arises. And it is said that is true, not only for the Pardo, Or even in our day-to-day life, when we thought comes, when we see thought or concept comes, there is a moment where it is a kind of the Sambhoga Kaya concept or whatever, the Nirmana Kaya, then that dissolves again, that concept. But especially during the Pardo, it is, we highlight it because it's basically the shutting down of this life's kind of the, gross consciousness. Even a tea, right? Morning one is very subtle. The lunchtime is not kind of little less gross. And then the night one is kind of pure, basically pure all concept of the definition of the tea. Similarly, also when the emotion shut down, also there is a fourth stage. First, the anger dissolves into the the desire, and desires are caused by ignorance is the most subtle, and ignorance also shuts down, and there is a short period, where we are naturally in the non-fabricated or undefinable or emptiness or whatever union that you can call it, Mahamudra. The nature of the mind, it is said, naturally arises, right? But that duration, whether it is in that duration, it is said that it depends on the practitioner. So the ones who in our day-to-day life, through our visualizations and practice, and especially through the practice of remaining in the non-fabricated nature of the mind, where we recognized the undefinable, the union of clear and empty nature of the mind. When we are able to recognize and be, kind of remain in that state, that awareness that we do in our daily practices, in our day-to-day life, it is called the mother luminosity. Luminosity doesn't really mean some sort of bright light. It just means luminous. Why? Because luminous means light. Light is opposite of the ignorance, opposite of darkness. Right? So, whatever awareness that we have of the nature of the mind, that awareness is called the baby or the child luminosity. If you're able to do that, so that is called the recognizing the Dhammakaya and getting enlightened in the Dhammakaya stage of the Pardo.